sisters, and welcome again to another edition of BFR Ministry, Bible Facts Revealed. We are an extension of Absolute Bible Truth Atlanta, where Brother Joshua and Brother Big Baby are the teachers there, along with assistant pastors Brother Antoine and Brother LeVar. I'm Brother David, your teacher for today, and reading for me as usual is Sister Teresa.
How are you?
And we are Absolute Bible Truth Chicago. And we have a motto here, and our motto is simply this: if they can't prove it, don't you believe it. Okay, and we also would like for you to join us every Saturday, that's Saturday, at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Blog Talk Radio, to listen to Absolute Bible Truth, where you will be getting an edified and blessed class from Brother Joshua. That's every Saturday or Sabbath at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio, and tune in to Absolute Bible Truth, where Brother Joshua, as I said before, will be your teacher, and you will be getting an edified lesson from him. And getting to our class today that we're going to bring to you, it's part 2 of Israel's invasion of the Promised Land and why it was necessary. Once again, our class today is part 2 of Israel's invasion of the Promised Land and why it was necessary. And to cut to the chase, I'm going to have a chart on the screen of an ancient time, a frame of time. And when you look at this chart, you're going to be able to follow along with us as we go through it. We're going to go through time, and some things happened in this Bible, and I'm going to place a time to these events, and then you're going to understand clearly what you have been reading in this Bible all along, because nobody attaches time most of the time when they read stuff. They don't pay attention to when it happened. What time was it, you know? And people just think it's just up in the air, but it's not. So when you attach a time frame to a lot of these events, your picture will become very clear. In other words, it would no longer be obscure. You're going to be coming out of obscurity, in other words. So this is what this lesson is designed to do. So we're going to start, first of all, by saying, again, Israel's invasion of the Promised Land, part 2. Why was it necessary? Well, I'm going to just cut to the chase and tell you simply the same reason that the flood was necessary. The same thing happened, and the Lord brought Israel. He made his flood, in that sense, be the nation of Israel. They cleaned out the Promised Land. Not the whole world as the flood did back in the days of Noah, but simply the Promised Land, because this was a holy land. And it was corrupt, and many other things, and we're going to get into it right now. But my chart, when you look on the screen, you'll see that in 4004 BC, and all the scholars agree that this was the date that Adam was created. I'm not going to bicker with anybody about it. Just look it up, and you'll see 90+% of them agree that this was the actual date. So 4004 BC, Adam was created, and we're going to skip to get to the point all the way to the birth of Jared. This was Enoch's father. He was born 3544 BC. Same thing. All the scholars agree that this was the time that he came forth. He was born, and there's a gap there, but something happened in the days of Jared. This is when the sons of God descended on the earth, and you can read that too. And this is when all of the problems for man and the world and the earth began. They descended upon Mount Hermon, and so from Adam's creation to the birthday of Jared is 460 years. Then we're going to skip again all the way to the birth of Noah, which was 2948 BC. Noah was born. And of course we know Jared is Enoch's father. And so when you look at the time between Jared's birth and Noah's birth, we have a combined number of years here, okay? And we're going to look at something else. 596 years, actually, this gives these sons of God or fallen angels all this time, almost 600 years, 596 years to begin doing what? Just as Genesis 6:4 tells you, they married and coupled with the daughters of men, and they brought forth their children, which were the Geborim, or the giants, or the Raphaim. And some people use Nephilim. It's interchangeable word. You can use it for their fathers or the angels, and as well as the children. But you have to understand when you're reading, you can depict which one it's talking about. However, we're going to start there, and then we're going to continue this by just saying that Noah lived 600 years. And the Lord then, through all of this turmoil and all of this stuff that was going on during the days before Noah reached 600 years old, with all of the corruption and the murder and all of this, the flood was sent in 2348 BC. Okay? So you have 600 more years for all of this corruption and all of this vile stuff and perversiveness to be going on the earth, and it corrupted the earth. So combined from Noah's birth to 2348, when you combine these years, that's 600 years plus 596 years, you're looking at 1,196 years, and you can do the math. And you had all of this stuff going on the earth. This is why the flood was necessary. The earth was messed up, brothers and sisters. And we're going to get into that. We're going to post this chart, and you can see the chart, and you can follow along with this chart once we post it on the screen. As we get into the class, you can refer to it from time to time. It will give you some clarity if need be. But we're going to now get started, and we're going to run this timeline all the way to the coming of David. Okay? When you look at, just to say, you know, to make it right, we're going to deal with after the flood when we get to that point. But we're going to stop right here. This is all things that happened before the flood. And then we'll deal with the time frame and the chart again when we get to after the flood. But let's get started and start explaining some of these things that people have no idea in terms of what they are. They don't understand what they're talking about, but we're going to try to shed more light than ever on a lot of these events and things that took place in the Bible. Let's get started, and we're going to see why Israel's invasion of the Promised Land was necessary, because they were symbolic of the flood that came in Noah's day. So he raised up Israel as his nation, and they were symbolic of the flood. They were sent into the Promised Land to wipe out them giants, and that's what they did. But anyway, let's get into this, and let's follow this from the beginning all the way up to where we want to be. Start at verse 4, Genesis 6:4.
There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that.
Okay, so we have one entity, giants, on the earth. Go ahead.
When the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown.
And you get all the components of this situation right here in just this little part here. You got the giants, you got the sons of God, you got the daughters of men, the men and their daughters, and these are the four entities that brought about a lot of stuff. Mainly these sons of God coupled with the daughters of men, and you can read this in the Bible, and they brought forth these giants. And this is where all of the earth's problems began. Mankind as well as beasts, and even insects, brothers and sisters, plants, plant life, everything was corrupted. Continue reading.
And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually.
Now, what could possibly get inside of a man's mind, and his every thought, every moment of his existence is just evil continually? Think about that, brothers and sisters. I don't think we've had teachers to really have us kind of examine that train of thought. Can you imagine waking up in a 24-hour period and all you thought about was evil and destroying others? This is what was going on here in the days of Noah before the flood. Get some idea of why it had to be sent. Everybody thought like this. It wasn't but 8 souls saved, so everybody else thought like this. This is what nobody's paying attention to. Continue to read.
And it repented the Lord that he made man on the earth.
Uh-huh.
And it grieved him at his heart.
Go ahead.
And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air.
Uh-huh.
For it repenteth me that I have made them.
So his whole creation was corrupted. By what entity? We read you 4 that's involved in the scenario, and 2 of them corrupted mankind and everything. Man and beast and everything else was corrupted by these entities. So it repented the Lord that he had created these things because they couldn't do nothing about these beings attacking them, and then also entering their thought process and making them like them. They taught them this wickedness. So skip down to verse 11. We're going to read 11 and 12 and continue this.
And the earth also was corrupted before God.
Was what?
Corrupt.
Corrupt before God. Go ahead.
And the earth was filled with violence.
Where did this violence come from? It had to, it was no mention of violence, brothers and sisters, on this magnitude before we get to Genesis 4. So what caused it? You read about these 4 entities. That's what brought this about. And this is on the earth. And because the Lord going to look on the entire earth, and this is all over the world. This is what you're reading here. Go ahead.
And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt.
It was corrupt. Now we're going to look up this word, and we're going to see what that means. I can tell you, but we're going to read it. Go ahead.
For all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth.
And I want you to remember that. He said all flesh had corrupted his way. And that's a twofold thing with God's way and theirs. Okay? It was just corrupt. They were, every day you wake up 24 hours a day, all you thinking about is evil. And doing evil. Murder, robbery, bestiality. All of this stuff is included in. We're going to show you this. We're going to show it to you. You're not understanding what you is homosexuality. All this is included in here. And much more. And we're going to share and shed some light on this. We're going to reveal some of this stuff to you. Anyway, let's go to the Strong's Bible Concordance. And we're going to go to the Hebrew section. And we're going to define the word corrupt and corrupted. They're one and the same. They mean the same. And we're going to go to Strong's Bible Concordance 7843 in the Hebrew section and define the word translated corrupt. What's the word?
The word is shakaf.
And it means?
A primary root to decay, i.e. causatively ruined.
So all flesh was decayed and what? Ruined by these entities, these sons of God and these giants. This is what you're reading, brothers and sisters. Continue this.
Literally or figuratively. Batter.
That means they murdered them. This is what batter means. When you batter somebody, brothers and sisters, how do you batter somebody? Think about that. Go ahead.
Cast off.
Go ahead.
Corrupt. Corrupter, corrupt thing, destroy, destroyer.
That's what they did. They were destroying God's creation, trying to replace his creation with their own. They were creating beings and whatnot too. You don't understand this, but go ahead and finish that.
Destruction, lose, mar.
Mar. What's mar? Think about it. Go ahead.
Perish, spill, spoiler, utterly waste, waster.
That's what they did. They marred the flesh of all. He said all flesh was corrupted, had been corrupted. So it was marred. It was messed up, decayed. All right, let's go stay in the Strongs, and we're going to stay in the Hebrew section. We're going to flip over to 1320, and we're going to define the word in the Hebrew section translated flesh. What's the word?
The word is bashar.
And what does it mean?
From 1319, flesh. From its freshness.
Go ahead.
By extension, body, person, also the pudenda of a man. Body.
Body. So we talking about all, it's flesh. We talking about flesh here, brothers and sisters. And the Lord said all flesh. So birds, beings in the water, you understand? Animals crawling on earth, on the land. Everything was corrupted by these entities we spoke of earlier. Go ahead.
Fat, lean flesh, fleshed, kin, mankind, nakedness. Note.
Okay, that's good. But this is telling you, it's clear, brothers and sisters, that this is a literal thing. All fleshly beings were literally, or either you can say literally, humanity. Okay, the flesh of humanity became corrupt, ruined, and marred, and spoiled by these angels and these giants, their children. This is what was going on in the days of Noah before the flood. And the reason for this also you can find when you go back to Genesis 3 and 15. The Lord himself prophesied that the seed of the woman would destroy the seed of the serpent, or the serpent itself. So that serpent, Satan, decided that, hey, I know how to deal with this thing. I'll stop him from being able to be born through mankind by corrupting all flesh. And it won't be nothing pure for him to come through, because the Lord ain't going to deal with nothing that's tainted. However, he's not smarter than God. The Lord saved 8 souls. And they hadn't been tainted or corrupted by these entities that corrupted the world at that time. And so this is what you're dealing with here. But you can find the reason for this by just going back and reading Genesis 3 and 15 and the prophecy that was declared. That's why Satan decided to do this, and he had help, brothers and sisters. And until this day, this is an ongoing fight. This is still going on. It ain't over. Take a look around. Open your eyes. This same intent is prevalent today and will be beyond us until the Lord returns. And people have forgotten this entirely. Okay? But anyway, we're going to continue to pursue this. And again, we're trying to get clarity about the events that happened in the days of Noah before the Lord had no recourse but to send the flood and destroy all flesh. All but 8 souls were saved, and the animals that were on the ark as well. And also, brothers and sisters, remember, Noah was found perfect in his generation, and you can look up that word. You should look up that word. It's in the Hebrew 85:49, and it means without spot, undefiled, upright, complete, without blemish, and so forth, without defect. Okay, he was not contaminated. So let's move on now and cross-reference this with something. We're going to go to the book of Enoch and cross-reference what we just read out of Genesis 6 and see if it says the same thing, because remember, Enoch was before Moses. Okay? And a lot of people don't realize that. So he would know about this before Moses. So where do you think Moses got it from? You need to think about that. But anyway, we're going to go to the book of Enoch, chapter 65. We're going to read verse 6 and skip to 10. And we're going to take a closer look at something, because Genesis mentioned violence. Where did it come from? We're going to read where it came from. When you get this verse 6, read.
And a command has gone forth from the presence of the Lord concerning those who dwell on the earth. Okay, that's all who dwell on the earth. Okay, and this command is concerning all of those that were corrupted and tainted, and the ones that perpetrated this violence on others and got others to do the same. This is what we're going to find out here, and that means the fallen angels, the giants, and the wicked mankind, and even animals were doing things. They had them doing things. But anyway, continue this. That their ruin is accomplished because they have learnt all the secrets of the angels.
The heavenly secrets of the angels. When they came down, brothers and sisters, these angels brought knowledge with them. And this is what they taught mankind and corrupted mankind with this knowledge. Okay, but he said they learned all of the secrets of who?
The angels.
The angels, the sons of God. But you say the sons of God in Genesis 6 are just the sons of Seth. But this said, he not say who they are. They angels. Same as the Moses, because all you gotta do is define that word. It'll tell you what those sons of God are indeed angels. But anyway, he said they learned all the secrets of these angels. Go ahead.
And all the violence.
Wait a minute. All of what?
Violence.
They learned all the violence of who?
Of the Satans.
Because that's what they were when they became wicked, brothers and sisters. They learned all the violence. That's why when you read Genesis 6, that's why that word is there. Go ahead.
And all their powers.
What?
Powers.
So mankind had some, what kind of power? We're going to keep reading and find out. Go ahead.
The most secret
The
one.
most secret powers. Go ahead.
And all the power of those who practice sorcery.
This is the power they learned. This is what corrupted mankind before the flood, brothers and sisters, and it's going on even today. But nevertheless, they learned the power of, when you say sorcery, what are we talking about here? We're talking about magic.
Mm-hmm.
Real magic. And people don't believe it's real. This is what you're reading here. This is written also in the King James Bible. For those of you who don't like to read nothing else but that, this is in there. You can't get around this. You can't throw it away. It's there. Why do you think Israel was given all these laws not to deal with this stuff and people who dealt with this? But anyway, they learned all of the power, and we learning now that power and is, what is it?
Sorcery.
Sorcery. Continue to read this.
And the power of witchcraft.
Also the power of witchcraft. Now you know what witches and warlocks came from. It was, that knowledge was brought down by these sons of God, these fallen angels, given to mankind, and it corrupted all flesh, because this is what was going on. They was practicing this stuff. And this is what was destroying the earth as well. This is what brought about violence as well. Murder, rape, all of this stuff was going on. Go ahead.
And the power of those who make molten images for the whole earth.
This is also, who taught man how to do that? You reading it. These angels did.
Angels and the Satans.
That's right.
Plural.
Simple as the Satan. That means more than one of them. But anyway, continue, because that means when he say the image, molten images from the whole earth, they talking about, they taught them how to mine silver and metals and tin and lead out of the earth. Man didn't know how to do that. The angels taught them how to do this.
Which were weapons of war.
Right. And these were the secrets that man didn't know nothing about this stuff. But the angels shared this with mankind to speed up their what? Destruction. Because this is what this knowledge caused. But anyway, continue to read the scripture, verse 10.
And he said unto me, because of their unrighteousness, their judgment has been determined upon and shall not be withheld by me forever.
This is what the Lord is telling the righteous angels. Hey, this is what time it is. This is what's going to happen. Continue.
Because of the sorceries which they have searched out and learned.
Now, read that one more time. I want you to pay attention to read that again.
Because of the sorceries which they have searched out and learned, the earth and those who dwell upon it shall be destroyed.
Brothers and sisters, you're looking at why the flood was sent. Some of the reasons why the flood was sent. You don't know this. But it's here, it's available. You just got to dig deeper and get a clear picture of a history you know nothing about. And thinking that you have some understanding of history, no you don't. This is the real history we're reading of this earth. And it's been hid from millions and millions of people. They don't know about this stuff. But it's part of the Bible, part of scripture, of canon. And people don't believe it. It's there, but you got to believe what you read. And it makes all of the sense in the world because you can find tangible evidence that this is what happened. You can, but you got to believe what you read. But man searched out and learned all of this stuff. This is what corrupted all flesh and the earth. Let's move on. Let's go back to Genesis 6. We're going to read one verse 13.
And God said unto Noah.
Now, this is in reference also to the violence, okay, and that cursed seed that caused the violence or brought it forth. Go ahead.
The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them.
Now you know why the end came before the Lord, because the earth was filled with violence through who?
Them.
Who is them?
The angels and Satan's.
This is right here in the Bible. You never pay no attention. Through them. And also the Satans. Didn't it say that in Enoch? This is what you're reading here. These fallen angels and their giant offspring and the corruption that they brought forth and gave man this understanding corrupted them too. So this is a complete package of why the Lord had the wicked ones. The whole earth was corrupted, brothers and sisters. Continue reading this.
And behold, I will destroy them with the earth.
He said he's going to destroy them. And you're not paying any attention to none of this. Anyway, and is there lewdness and violence and rape and adultery and fornication, robbery, murder still going on today? Of course it is, because these evil spirits have not deceased or desist from doing what they were doing way back in those days. You're influenced by beings you can't see, brothers and sisters. You need to understand this. But anyway, let's move on, because we understand why mankind had to be destroyed, because it said that his every thought when they was tainted was evil. Continually. But why did he have to destroy the animals, the poor little animals? We know that all flesh was corrupted, but in what way were the animals corrupted, and all the other beings, and the fish and the birds, and in what way? Okay, we're going to find out about that too. Let's go back to the book of Enoch and cross-reference some things. We're going to go to Enoch 7, chapter 7. We're going to read 1 to 6. And the title of this is Offspring of the Fallen Angels and Women. Okay? This is what we read. That's what we read in Genesis 6. We read that in Genesis. We read it right here too. Where do you think Moses got this from? I keep asking that question. Nobody wants to answer. But anyway, let's start at verse 1 and read this and pick up on this and get a little bit more clarity on this. Go ahead.
And all the others together with them took upon...
With who?
With them.
With all. This is that them that we was talking about in Genesis. With them. He's saying all the others together with them. Go ahead.
Took upon themselves wives.
Wait a minute. Didn't the sons of God do this? But we know the sons of God are angels. So this is that them. Go ahead.
And each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them.
Go ahead.
And they taught them charms and enchantments.
Charm and enchantments? We're talking about mediums, brothers and sisters, and familiar spirits. This is what you're talking about, charms. The same thing we read about with sorcery and witchcraft and all this stuff. This is what you're dealing with here. Go ahead, continue. He said, and enchantments, which is how to cast spells and sorcery through incantations, which is still going on today.
Yes, it is.
It ain't faded, it's still happening. But this, you act like the stuff that you see today didn't have a beginning. It didn't start anywhere. That's what I'm amazed with people today. When you bring this stuff up, they want to say, well, it's going. No, this stuff has an origin, and we're showing it to you. You need to open your eyes and get into this a little bit. You'll understand more things than you really, really thought you would. But anyway, continue reading this. And enchantments.
And the cutting of roots. And
using herbs and potions for spells. Go ahead.
And made them acquainted with plants.
For what purpose was that? For like a druggist or a pharmacist, for medicine. Okay, plants. That's where you get medicine from, brothers and sisters. But they were using it for
harm.
For harm. You don't understand this. Go ahead.
And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants.
Wait a minute. Who became pregnant?
The women.
These wives that they took, the daughters of men, became pregnant and bare giants. This is what you read. We read the same thing in Genesis 6, brothers and sisters. The same thing. Where do you think Moses got this from? I keep asking that question. Go ahead.
Whose height was 3,000 ells.
Go ahead.
Who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them,
feed them. That's what acquisitions are. Feed them. Man was they had men. They were ruling over man at that time in Genesis 6 and the days before the flood. They were ruling the earth, and they had men as slaves, and they had to grow them food and feed them, but they couldn't keep up with them. These are giants we're talking about here. Go ahead.
The giants turned against them and devoured mankind.
Devour them how?
A carnival.
They ate them, brothers and sisters. You're looking at something else here. You're looking at cannibalism. Who you think brought this to the earth? The giants was eating men, humans, and everything else that was flesh. They get their hands on. But it said they they could no longer sustain them, feed them, and then they turned against them and began to devour, meaning eat them. Go ahead.
And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish and to devour one another's flesh.
And wait a minute. They began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish. Well, they first corrupted the earth through sexual means. I'm just telling you, brother, this is what's written in the Bible. So how do you think they corrupted these birds and these beasts? The same exact way. And that's written in history. You can find that as well. And it's all on hieroglyphics. It's on relics. You can find it in tombs. All of this. This is the truth. And this is how they messed up these birds and these reptiles sexually. It's as simple as that. And also, this is the beginning of something else. We're talking bestiality here. This was introduced to man and taught to man as well. Go ahead.
And drink the blood.
And you know this is against the law. Noah was given this law in terms to pass on to his sons and their sons. You can eat, but you can't eat nothing with the blood in it. But what were they doing?
They were drinking blood.
Now you understand something else. People amaze me, Teresa, when you mention words, they go to thinking crazy. What do vampires drink?
Blood.
Blood. They're real too. It ain't like you be seeing on TV, but these are just people who drink blood. You can be called a vampire. If I grab a steak and it ain't been cooked and it's dripping with blood, what am I? I'm acting like what?
A vampire.
It's as simple as that. Someone who eats blood. And they still here today. You got people like that. They just messed it up by, putting all this other stuff to it. But it's a such thing as vampires. It really is. It's just somebody that eats blood. That's all. But anyway, continue this.
Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones.
So the people who they were killing and eating and whatnot and tainting and messing up began to cry out to the Lord about what was going on the earth. And the Lord sent forth righteous angels to start dealing with them. But we're not going to get into that. What we're going to do, you can find the historical record on this as well, brothers and sisters. And you're also looking at something else. Not only were we talking about witchcraft and spell casting and cannibalism and bestiality, we're also looking at something else. DNA and generic tampering. That was also here. You remember reading about something else we did in part 1 to show you that they tampered with the DNA of what? Plants. That's why you get them grapes that one cluster had to be carried by 2 men on a pole. You don't see no grapes around today like that big. They would, who you think introduced the knowledge. And we're going to read that later on. We're going to read it. I'm going to show it to you. These sons of God introduced this understanding and knowledge to change and misdirect DNA of animals and men, and they crossbred animals as well as humans, brothers and sisters. Ain't they doing it today? What do they call it?
Oh, they call it
Cloning. And they call it something else. But you're not paying attention to none of this stuff. This is not new. This is old news. I'm just showing you where it came from and who brought it to mankind. And the historical records, as I said, of the Hebrews will even prove this and bear it out even more if you look for it. And that's the problem I have with you guys. You don't search for anything. Let's take a quick look in another historical record of some of what we've shown you today and we've revealed to you in this class. We're going to go to the book of Jasher, chapter 4, and read 17 and 18 and confirm something else that we read out of the Bible and out of Enoch, because all of these books are lining up with the Bible, brothers and sisters. All of them are. And if we had other books, which we're going to read a few others, they're going to line up as well. And you can't get around any of this information. But it stems from you believing. You got to believe the Bible. And this is what it says as well. Maybe not in great detail, but it says the same thing. Okay? We're just finding out the missing pieces here. But anyway, we're going to take a look at this and find out something here, who these judges and these rulers were. And they were really doing this violence to mankind while they forced mankind to cry out to the Lord about what was going on and what was happening to them. When you get to verse 17, we're going to find out some other things. Read this. Start reading at 17.
Chapter 4?
Yes, the book of Jasher, chapter 4, verse 17 and 18. 17.
And every man made unto himself a god.
Hold it a minute. Then we read in Enoch what they taught man, these angels, how to go in the earth and get tin and all this stuff out to make these gods. This is confirming that. So go ahead. And when they did that and some other things, it caused some things to happen during that time, the days before the flood. Let's read some of them. Go ahead.
And they robbed and plundered every man, his neighbor as well as his relatives.
You see this, brothers and sisters? This is what this caused. It's in conjunction with what we read already. Continue.
And they corrupted the earth, and the earth was filled with violence.
Do we read that in the Bible? We read that in Enoch. Now we reading it in the book of Jasher. They're all lining up, brothers and sisters. You're not paying attention. Okay? But this is telling you something here. All this robbing and plundering and they say of every man of his neighbor and his relative. How would you feel about going out today? You ain't got no money and taking your 357 Magnum and go stick up your mama or your father or your brother.
That's when we get the crackheads.
That's right.
Relatives.
You absolutely right. See, this is what you did. You think this stuff just only happened then. You still have threads to where it began going on today. Crackheads do the same thing.
They get their thing from the plants and making of chemicals.
Exactly.
To do
your methamphetamine. All of this stuff. This is nothing new. You're not paying attention. But let's continue this because we're revealing some things to you today, and you can accept them or not. But we're gonna tell you the truth. Go ahead.
And their judges and rulers.
Wait a minute. Who's the judges and the rulers? We're talking about the watchers, the angels, the sons of God, and their offspring, the giants who were ruling over man. Didn't they corrupt man with teaching, and then man had to feed them? They were their slaves. They ruled over them, and then when they couldn't sustain them or feed them, they began to eat them. This is what we read. These are these judges and rulers. It's going to tell you that when you read further. Continue to read.
Went to the daughters of men.
Right there. Who went to the daughters of men?
The judges and rulers, the
right.
giants, the angels.
As simple as that, brothers and sisters.
The angels, rather.
Go ahead.
Went to the daughters.
But no, you were right. They both did it. They both did it. Well, go ahead.
Went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force.
Wait a minute.
From their husbands.
Wait a minute. We're going to start this back up with went to and read that again, because I want you to make sure you get this. They took these wives. Genesis 6 tells you about it. Enoch told you about it. But they took them by force. if you take something by force, it brings about what? Violence. That's why it was happening in Genesis. That's what you're reading about. They killed, some of these husbands couldn't beat them, but they didn't want to let their wives go, so they had to kill. That's where that violence comes in, brothers and sisters. They were no match for these angels, sons of God, no way. But some of these husbands love their wives enough to die for them. And this is what you're reading about here. But go ahead, start it. Went to the daughters. Start right there and read that.
Went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice.
Everyone they saw, I like that one there. I'm gonna take, just look, oh, there's one right there. Go, just taking them. And took them by force. This is where that violence comes in. Go ahead.
And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth.
Okay, but check this out also, just before we get into this second part here. If you take a man's wife and you sleep with her, what you doing? And what is that called, brothers and sisters? According to the law.
Adultery.
It's called adultery. Now you know who brought excuse me, now you know who brought that to the earth as well. Had nothing to do with Adam and Eve. You're looking at the entities that did that. Along with all this other corrupt nonsense that we deal with today. That people seem to accept like it's good and it's holy and it's not. It's tainted. It corrupted mankind then. And what do you see when you open your eyes and look out in the world today? Mankind is being corrupted continually, brothers and sisters, by the same stuff that began way back here. And you're not paying attention to this because you don't pick up no book and you don't try to read this Bible and define any words to understand this. Okay? But then it tells you that these sons of men, they corrupted now. Look what they did. Start at that right there at that point and read that again about these sons of men.
And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of those animals of one species with the other.
What? The mixture, they crossbred. And this is twofold. I showed you earlier, it started with the angels corrupting mankind sexually. What you think they did? But they doing this that way. And I'm going to show you this too. And they're doing it another way here. This is where that DNA manipulation, when you start talking about crossbreeding the species, they were shown how to do this stuff. In other words, it was like these sons of God were scientists in a way. They had some understanding of, they were in the beginning with God. Well, when they know how man is made up and animals are made up, they understood this. And they weren't supposed to do it, but they taught it to man and they corrupted man. Look what you're doing here. Mixing the animals, the species of animals. How can you crossbreed species and you get a monster from it? By mixing the wrong animals together. You're not supposed to do that no more. The Lord told you in Genesis, every seed after what?
His kind.
His kind. Right here you see a sin taking place. When they did this, this is what corrupted man, all the beasts and the earth as well, brothers and sisters. Now you see how necessary it was for God to send the flood. This world was out of control. It was ran by these angels and their children. That's why he gave them that 120-year limit. But they couldn't change their thought process. They had to die. And the Lord knew that, but he had mercy on them and gave them a chance anyway. That's the kind of God we got. Okay? Anyway, let's continue this.
And taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other.
Go ahead.
In order therewith to provoke the Lord.
They knew what they was doing. Remember, their minds have been tainted. They were wicked. They only thought to do evil every waking minute of the day. So they want to provoke the Lord. Go ahead.
And God saw the whole earth, and it was corrupt.
It was corrupt, brothers and sisters. Go ahead.
For all flesh had corrupted his ways.
How absolute is all, Teresa?
All,
brothers and sisters. Go ahead.
Corrupted its ways upon earth, and all men and all animals.
All men and all animals. And we discover as we go on, and in terms of understanding Genesis 6, all men but Noah and his 3 sons. And if you include women with that equation, you just 8 souls. That's all that survived during that time. The whole earth was corrupted, tainted. The DNA was no longer good. They were unclean, marred. If you will, you go back to the definition of that word. In any way, but you have DNA tampering here, brothers, mixing DNA. They're tampering with DNA here. They taught me how crossbreed species. What would put that on an average man's mind? I'm gonna take this giraffe and crossbreed it with a
So
monkey.
you have a lion with a bird's head.
Right.
We have pictures of that on it.
Right. All these hieroglyphics that you read and see in these tombs, they are not pictures that people made up in their mind, brothers and sisters. These are real relics. And many people know this. These are the people that don't want to share the history of this earth with all mankind. For some reason, they want to keep it a secret so you don't know, and then keep people bickering about it. So the longer they keep you bickering, the more they can hide from you. And you don't understand this. But nevertheless, we're going to stay in Jasher. Let's move to Jasher chapter 61. We're going to read 14 and 16 and keep it moving. This is to show you that this actually took place. When they mixed the species and crossbred animals, you had some humans who had animal features as well. And we're going to read an incident about this. This is in the book of Jasher, another historical reference of genetically engineered animals, half man, half animal, and some people know them and call them centaurs. But we're going to see what this says. So this, when you get to the 14th verse of the 61st chapter, read.
And it was one day that Zepho lost a young heifer.
This Zepho is of the seed of Esau. This is an Edomite here. But let's look at something that happened that he was dealing with. Go ahead. He lost a heifer. You know what a heifer is. I don't have to tell you that. Go ahead.
And he went to seek it. And he heard it lowing around about the mountain.
Okay, go ahead.
And Zepho went and he saw, and behold, there was a large cave at the bottom of the mountain.
Go ahead.
And there was a great stone there at the entrance of the cave.
So whatever's ever going on, this stone was rolled over the entrance to hide what was going on inside of it, but he heard this howling of his heifer. So anyway, continue this.
And Zepho split the stone, and he came into the cave, and he looked, and behold,
what did he see? Go ahead.
A large animal was devouring an ox.
The ox, his ox is who he was looking for. He said he split this entrance. It had this stone covering it to keep you from understanding or seeing what was going on in there and who was in there. He split it, opened up, walked in there. He see this large animal. It was devouring the ox. Okay, go ahead.
From the middle upward, it resembled a man.
Read that again.
From the middle upward, it resembled a man. And from the middle downward, it resembled an animal.
This lets you know, brothers and sisters, when you see these pictures, relics in these tombs of kings, of ancient kings and so forth, hieroglyphics on ancient pyramids and all, this stuff ain't false.
And so-called mythology.
It's not. Yes, exactly. Mythology. No. Because all myth is derived from truth, brothers and sisters. You don't know that because you don't research. Believe me. And we can show you that clearly. But this is real here. This is a historical account that the Hebrews kept of their history. And it's telling you that this beast came about through the mixing and crossbreeding of species. Man was given that knowledge from the sons of God, or the angels, fallen angels. And this is what was about. And believe me, if there was one, don't you think there was more than one at some point? But anyway, continue this.
And Zepho rose up against the animal and slew it with his sword.
He killed it. Go ahead.
And the inhabitants of Chittim heard of this thing,
Uh-huh.
and they rejoiced exceedingly, and they said, what shall we do unto this man who has slain this animal that devoured our cattle?
That's why they rejoiced, because he was obviously killing their cattle too.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they were scared to fight him or whatever. But Zebo, hey, he split the stone and went in the cave and killed the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just proof, brothers. It's historical proof. And you can find more of it if you look, that these things happened. These beasts existed. And you can find reference to them on tons and tons of relics throughout history. And they existed. But we ain't talking about no mythological creatures here. They actually existed, you know? And I can say a little bit more about that, but I'm going to leave that for another class. We're going to keep it moving. And we see the interference of alterations, rather, with DNA being tampered with and altered and manipulated. And all this was going on. That's how these sons of God and their giant sons corrupted the whole world, and the ancient, the old world, and it had to be destroyed. We're going to go back to the Bible now, and this is why the Lord tell you in the law that was given to Israel, because remember Israel was his army, and this is why he told them, thou shalt not. And we're going to read a few of these thou shalt not, so you'll know why they are in the Bible. We've already shown you somewhat, but we're going to read, and you'll understand when you read it. Let's go to Exodus 22, we're going to read 18 and 19. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Why? We know why. Because she will corrupt you. They corrupted all flesh back in the days before the flood. What makes you think they won't do the same thing?
Right.
This is what people don't understand. Continue to read.
Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death.
We're talking about bestiality. We know why. Because mankind was taught to do this as well. This is why it's in the law, brothers and sisters. Go ahead. That's the end of that. But this is why when you read about this, witches were taught by their husbands, who were the fallen angels, to be witches. Casting spells and all this stuff, and incantations, all this was given to mankind as well. And they had also, they dealt with animals and whatnot, and the Lord put this in the law for Israel. Hey, a witch, don't suffer a witch to live. No. Because she's going to bring about disaster in the whole nation. And if anybody alive with a beast, I want them both dead. Because this is an abomination. It shouldn't be going on. Okay? And now you know why the flood was sent. All this was going on back then, brothers and sisters. It tainted all and corrupted all flesh, all but 8 souls. Okay? This is why God instructed Moses to put this in the law and give it to the Israel too, the nation of Israel as well. We're going to go to Leviticus 18, verse 22 and 24. Okay? When you get there, start reading.
Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind.
What is this? Homosexuality, isn't it? Lesbianism. This is against the law, brothers and sisters. It's in the Bible. This ain't got nothing to do with me, personally. So don't be writing me and talking crazy to me. We're reading the Bible here. And we can read other historical books that will bear this out as well. We can cross-reference this with other historical books, and it'll say the same thing as the Bible. Go ahead.
It is abomination. Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down thereto.
This brothers and sisters, we're talking about bestiality here. This is why this was put in the law. But we saw that it derived and it began with the falling of the sons of God. They fell. They became wicked. They coupled with the daughters of men and brought forth giants, and all this stuff was going on. This is why it was put in the law when Israel was chosen to be God's nation, a priest, righteous nation, symbolic of the flood to cleanse the promised land of all this. It was still going on then. That's why they were sitting in to get rid of them giants. They were still doing this. And he's telling you that, hey, This is an abomination. But anyway, continue. He said, if and this is why it's telling you that, hey, a woman and a lion stand before a beast to do what? To lie with her. You can't allow this. Go ahead.
It is confusion.
That's exactly what it is.
Defile not ye yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you.
This is what he's telling Israel. This is why I sent you in to cast them people out, because they was doing this. And this is derived from an ancient tradition that was brought down by these sons of God, fed to mankind. The Lord had to clean the world and destroy it. And then after the flood, they did the same thing, because all the angels were not incarcerated, like people think. That's why this came about a second time. And them angels had sex with women again, brought forth these giants, and they began to defile the earth. And when you look and look at Joshua and Moses trapped into the land and see, they were dealing with these, they were fighting these giants. And they were doing all of this stuff, bestiality, and animals, land with animals, and messing with DNA and all of this stuff. They corrupted all flesh, so the Lord had to get rid of them, so he sent Israel in there to do that. With a lot of help, of course, because he did some things to help them. But anyway, we're going to continue this because it spoke about earlier about mixing the seed. Now let's go to Leviticus 19:19 and read one verse, because we confirmed this in Jasher and so forth, and read in Enoch as well. Now we're going to read it here. Look at this, 19th verse. Read that 19th verse.
Ye shall keep my statutes.
Okay, meaning his laws and all of his good work, all of this. Keep that, because it's good. It'll give you life. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind.
In other words, don't what?
Don't
mix it.
species.
Don't mix species. Don't do like them fallen angels taught your forefathers before the flood and after. But don't do this. This is in the law. This is why this was put there. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed.
We're talking about crops now.
Crops.
This is where them grapes come in with them giants. Them huge grapes, because that's what they did. They knew how to do that. Go ahead.
Neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon thee.
You know about that as well. But anyway, we're going to keep it moving. You can see where this came from and why this was put in the law and given to Israel, God's priest nation. They couldn't do none of this stuff. And they were to teach the people, the other sons of Adam, not to do it either. But they failed, didn't they? That's why the world is in the state it's in today. Because Israel failed to do their job, brothers and sisters. You're looking at something that's deeper than you understand. Okay, we're going to go now back to our principal characters in this whole thing. The invasion of the promised land by Israel, and we just wanted to shed some light about why it was necessary. Why the invasion was necessary. We first had to find out why the flood was necessary. Now you understand why this invasion was necessary. Because the same thing was going on after the flood that went on before the flood. We're going to go to Joshua 24, and we're going to read Joshua 24, we're going to read verse 11 to the 13. And I'll mention to you in part 1 of this class about those bees, those wasps that the Lord used to get those giants, mainly King Og, out of that subterranean city that he was dwelling in. And he sent them wasps down there and ran him up out of there. That's how he came up. But anyway, we're going to verify that. Let's go to Joshua 24 and read. Start at 11 and read this. And the Lord is going to give you that information right here through Joshua. Go ahead.
And ye went over Jordan and came unto Jericho.
Another stronghold of the giants. Go ahead.
And the man of Jericho fought against you. The Amorites and the Perizzites.
And the Girgashites.
And the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Hivites.
Go ahead.
And the Jebusites.
Now all these had giants among them, brothers and sisters. Not entirely, but they were the ruling factions of these the ones we mentioned here, especially the Amorites. The Amorites were giants. They were whole nations of giants, and they had some smaller people, I would imagine. But remember, King Og was Amorite. And his brother Sion was an Amorite. So we're talking giants here, nations of giants, and these parasites, and these Girgashites, and these Hivites, and even the Canaanites had giants ruling over them. You can read it. This is all history. You can verify this historically, brothers and sisters. And anyway, continue this.
And I delivered them into your hand.
And how did he do that? Go ahead.
And I sent the hornet before you.
The what? The hornet. The hornet is the what? He sent them, and believe me, brothers and sisters, it could have been hornets in volume, or it could have been hornets that were a little bigger than normal hornets. I don't know. But we know that they were hornets, and they ran them giants up out of there. And he sent them not only on King Og, but on all the giants. He used this as another weapon for Israel. He was helping them get these giants about the promised land. But go ahead.
Which drave them out from before you. Even the 2 kings of the Amorites.
Sion and Og, go ahead.
But not with thy sword, nor by thy bow.
How did he do it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I have given you a land for which ye did not labor.
Israel didn't do nothing for this land and these built cities. Go ahead.
And cities which ye built not. And ye dwell in them.
Go ahead.
Of the vineyards and the olive yards which ye planted not, do ye eat.
Lord say, look here. You didn't have to grow nothing. All this stuff was set up for you. All you had to do is run them giants out and take it over. And that's what Israel did. But it's just going to show you, say, look, I got rid of these giants, especially Sion and King Og, by sending them hornets on them too to help y'all. And this is what we're reading here. Let's continue, and we're going to read it again out of the Apocrypha. We're going to go to the Apocrypha, the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12, and we're going to read verse 7 to 11. And we're going to pick up something else that I found very interesting in reading this. It shows you the mercy of our God. And I'm going to explain that to you when we get to this. But this is also dealing with the wasp or the hornets that he sent upon these giants. And it's going to say that here in the Apocrypha. When you get to verse 7, start reading.
That the land which thou esteemest above all others.
What land is that? The land of Canaan. The promised land. Go ahead.
Might receive a worthy colony of God's children.
Who was this worthy colony?
The Israelites.
The children of Israel, the nation of Israel, his army at that time. Meaning they're going to replace whoever's there. That's what it means by receive a worthy colony of God's children. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, even those thou sparedest as men.
Meaning them giants. Because go ahead, and we're going to show you this.
And didst send wasps, forerunners of thine host, to destroy them by little and little. He
sent them wasps to destroy them all over the land. They were everywhere. To destroy them giants little by little. When Israel get you destroying one, they move on to the next one. Them wasps was before them, dealing with them, and Israel come in and wipe them up and clean it up. This is how the Lord set this up. People, you're not reading this thing right. And so he say, continue reading this.
Not that thou wast unable to bring the ungodly under the hand of the righteous in battle.
Now he's saying, not that you, Lord, wasn't able to bring this ungodly brood of giants under the hand of the righteous nation Israel in battle. It wasn't that you weren't able to do that. But continue reading. This is going to explain further. You could have done that, but it's not so much that. But let's continue reading. Or, go ahead.
Or to destroy them at once with cruel beasts.
You could have sent cruel beasts on them, Lord, and destroyed them. Go ahead, but you didn't do that. Go ahead.
Or with one rough word.
He could have just spoke one word and it'd have been gone. He didn't do that either. Go ahead.
But executing thy judgments upon them by little and little.
Little by little. The Lord did this, and he used wasps to help Israel carry this out. Go ahead.
Thou gavest them place of repentance.
Wait a minute. You mean he tried to give these giants and all that they had corrupted space to repent? Of course he did. The Lord ain't no murderer. He don't wish that flesh, no matter what it was, no matter how it came forth, the Lord will give you an opportunity to straighten up and you can have life. And he's showing you right here. He gave these giants place or time for repentance. And you can read about this place and time in Genesis 6. It was at 120 years. You're not understanding what you're reading, brothers and sisters. That's what that 120 years represents. Those were the rulers of mankind at that time, right? He gave them 120 years to repent. We're reading it right here.
Yeah.
He was a merciful God. But of course we know they didn't take that. Go ahead and continue this.
Not being ignorant that they were a naughty generation.
The Lord understood their makeup. They were a naughty generation, but he still gave them time for repentance. Go ahead.
And that their malice was bred in them.
It was bred in them through who? Their progenitors, their parents. They were fallen. They turned wicked, which made them the same thing, brothers and sisters. Go ahead. Meaning that the qualities and potentialities, meaning generically they derive some of the same characteristics and chromosomes of their parents, meaning the sons of God. That's what this is telling you, these giants. They were a brood, a vicious brood of beings. Go ahead.
And that their cogitation would never be changed.
Meaning what? What's
Cognizance.
The thinking.
Thinking.
Every thought
was evil.
it was evil. That's what the Bible tells us. We get confirmation right here, brothers and sisters. The Bible says that every thought was evil, to do evil continually. We're reading it right here. That their cogitation, meaning their thinking or thought process, would never what?
Change.
Would never change. We can read that in Genesis 6 and 5. Anyway, continue.
For it was a cursed seed from the beginning.
So the seed of these fallen angels, meaning them giants, when they coupled with the daughters of men, was what seed?
Cursed.
Cursed seed, and everything they touched was also cursed, brothers and sisters. Tainted. This is what you got to understand. Go ahead. They were bastards, in other words. That's a better word. Go ahead.
Neither didst thou for fear of any man give them pardon for those things wherein they sinned.
He couldn't pardon them. They messed up. They messed up his creation. But he gave them a chance to repent. Couldn't do it. Their minds were set. It's like being reprobate.
And a pardon really isn't. You're guilty of doing something, but you're gonna give them a pass anyway.
Right.
He couldn't do that.
He couldn't do it because
They had to repent.
and also for another reason, they refused to repent.
Yeah, they had to repent.
They refused. And so, okay,
They didn't do it.
I mean, you're gonna deal with what you got to deal with. Anyway, we're gonna take a historical look at this. Same thing. We're gonna go to the writings of Josephus. We're gonna go to Josephus' Antiquities, and we're gonna go to 4.5.3, paragraph 98, page 146, and we're gonna read a little bit about King Og here, because we read about the Amorite. This is the Amorite giant, King Og, and it says something. You know, it shows you a little something about how this giant looked, because a lot of these giants had deformities, brothers and sisters. 2 rows of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes, and so forth. But we're gonna take a look at King Og and see how he looked. This was a very different giant. All of them wasn't like this. And we're going to pick this up when we read about King Og in Josephus. We're going to go to Josephus' Antiquities, 4.5.3, paragraph 98. Okay, 98, read.
Now Og had very few equals, either in the size of his body or handsomeness of his appearance.
And this is, you're reading this. This was, I guess, it's a handsome giant here. He wasn't deformed like a lot of the other giants we read about. Go ahead.
He was also a man of great activity in the use of his hands, so that his actions were not unequal to the vast size and handsome appearance of his body.
Go ahead. He's complimenting this man. This man was in great shape. Go ahead.
And men could easily guess at his strength and magnitude when they took his bed at Rabbath.
It gives you, his bed size gives you a real close look, brothers and sisters, how awesome and how gigantic in size this giant was. Go ahead, let's finish this.
The royal city of the Ammonites. Its structure was of iron.
Had to be big as this giant was. Go ahead.
Its breadth 4 cubits, and its length a cubit more than double the width.
Okay, meaning his height was 9 cubits. And when you use the Hebrew cubit of 2.10 feet or 25.05 inches, King Og was a minimum of 17.3 feet tall, brothers and sisters, and over 8 feet wide. And if you use a lesser cubit, it will still make him 12 feet 6 inches. So you're still dealing with a massively huge giant here. So I normally use the Hebrew cubit of 2.10 because to me that is what you're dealing with here. In any case, we're going to move on and stay in Josephus, and we're going to continue to follow up. But it shows you this giant, this King Og was a handsome giant here. He was in good shape, strong, huge inside, and very agile. You know, he was not one of those. I mean, meaning that in war, I'm quite sure this man was a hell of a fighter. But in any case, they also made noises and whatnot that got the attention of the people that they were fighting. They were loud and just ran you crazy. But we're going to read a little bit about that. Let's go to Josephus' Antiquities, 5.2.3, paragraph 125. And this is after Joshua died, when Eleazar and his brother prophesied that the tribe of Judah would destroy these giants. When you get to paragraph 125, read that one paragraph.
For this reason, they removed their camp to Hebron.
Okay, that was once the capital city of these giants throughout all back in the days of Abraham and so forth. Go ahead.
And when they had taken it, they killed all the inhabitants.
All the giants. Go ahead.
There were until then left the race of the giants, who had bodies so large and countenance so entirely different from other men.
Normal men. This is what you're reading here. Go ahead.
That they were surprising to the sight and terrible to the hearing.
I'm quite sure a 17-foot tall giant would surprise you if you saw it too. And they made, can you imagine how their voices sound? When they getting ready to roar, you got a nation of giants coming at you roaring. That had to be deafening. Okay, but this gives you a little bit of insight about that. Go ahead and continue this.
The bones of these men are still shown to this very day, and they are unlike those of other men.
Meaning normal men. Okay, these were not normal beings. However, we're going to now get back to Joshua and Israel. We're going to get back to the King James Bible, and we're going to go to Joshua chapter 11, and we're going to read about something here as well. We're still talking about Israel's invasion of the Promised Land and why it was necessary. We're giving you some insight and covering a lot of ground about some things that perhaps you haven't even ever heard. And maybe you have thought about some things and didn't pursue it. We're hoping that we're shedding some light and we're able to reveal some of the things that have been hid from you. And you're not being inquisitive enough to find them out yourselves. Now perhaps you will start doing that. But anyway, when you get to Joshua 11, 21 and 22, that's what we're going to read. Verse 21 and 22. This is talking about there were none of the Anakim left in the land of Israel, only in Gaza Gath, and Ashdod remained the giants, or a remnant of the giants, okay? Because Joshua had, started getting them out of the land. And so this is going to verify that. Go ahead.
And at that time came Joshua and cut off the Anakims from the
He
mountains,
killed the giants that were in the mountains. Anakim, go ahead.
from Hebron, from Debir, and Adnab.
And these were giant strongholds, okay, that Joshua was dealing with them. Go ahead. And the nation of Israel, who is the army of the living God. They are symbolic of the flood, and you can see this by looking at what he's doing here. He's getting them out of there with the help of those wasps, those hornets. Go ahead.
And from all the mountains of Judah, and from all the mountains of Israel.
So there wasn't any more giants left in the mountains of Israel and the mountains of Judah. Go ahead.
Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities.
Go ahead.
There was none of the Anakims left in the land of the children of
In
Israel.
the promised land, they were not. But they were still close by, brothers and sisters. We're going to go ahead and read. Where were they at?
Only in Gaza, in Gath, and Ashdod there remained.
Wait a minute. This God seemed kind of familiar. Who was from God?
I think Goliath.
Goliath of Gath. He was a Gothite. Not a Philistine, brothers and sisters. He dwelt there. But this is where he was from. And you're not paying attention to this. You read things and you don't understand the origin of anything. You just run with it. A lot of these Hebrew Israelites say that he was a Philistine. No, he was only a Philistine because he dwelt among them. As a hiree, they hired out his services. He was a champion. Okay? And at the time also a ruler, believe me, because they weren't telling him, making this giant do nothing. Okay? But he was from Gath. And this were the three places that they were left. Finish reading this.
I did.
So it tells us here that Joshua took the whole promised land. And these were the only three places that these giants, the remnant of them, remained. So it also tell you that you read verses 21 and 22, correct? Okay, it also tells you that the land rested from the war. Okay, with who though?
With the giants.
With the giants. If you keep reading, it'll tell you that. So Israel rested because they got them away from them and put them in a place where they didn't think it was important. So now we're getting ready to go back to our timeline chart, and we're going to bring a young 16-year-old David, some 477 years later, with respect to this timeline. We're going to start, remember the timeline started at Noah's flood came in 2348 BC, and in 1912 BC, some 436 years after the flood, Abraham and Sarah entered into the land of Canaan. And in 1451 BC, Moses and Joshua and the children of Israel, some 461 years after that, all right, including the 40 years that they traveled in the wilderness, they entered into the land. You got all this time, and what do you think these giants was doing all this time? What they did in the past, they were cohabitating and bringing forth other giants. But they had also spread out in other areas, brothers and sisters.
They were all over this area.
All over. And even up into Europe. That's a little lesson for you, though. But I'm telling you, after he ran them out of there, where did they go? They went into Africa. They were all over the place. Parts of Africa and so forth, and mainly Europe. But in any case, we come out of this time chart, like I said, 451 BC, when Moses and Joshua arrived, including the 40 years that they spent in the wilderness, and we come down to a young David in 974 BC. Another 477-year gap passed. What you think these giants was doing? I mean, you're not paying attention to any of this stuff. Now, it's obvious that these giants that were in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod did what they did, but they were no longer a factor because Israel took them out of all the places that they were That's why they moved in other regions of the earth. And so when you look at all of this, from Noah's flood to David's arrival is a combined time of 1,374 years, brothers and sisters. You can look at the chart and reference this. Anyway, so now what we're going to do, we're going to pick up David in the Bible. We're going to go to 1 Samuel 17, and we're going to read from the 2 to the 10, the 16 and 26, because David actually deals with the last of these giants. Okay? Because after him, you don't read anything about nations of giants or anything, because they were elsewhere. Okay? But anyway, when you get to 1 Samuel 17 and 2, read it. This is 974 BC, and David enters pictures here, and he is coming in a very unusual circumstance. We have something going along with Israel and the Philistines and the King Saul. And we're going to kind of see how this thing unravels and how David comes in this picture. Go ahead.
And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah.
Okay.
And set the battle in array against the Philistines.
They fighting the Philistines. Always, David always fought them Philistines. Go ahead.
And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side.
Go ahead.
And there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath.
And he was of Gath, brothers and sisters. But he was aligned,
with
like
the Philistines.
I read to you in part 1 of this class, that there were giants aligned against Israel. I mean, normal people aligned with the giants against Israel. So you had alignments here, people who came together against Israel, just joining other people. So Goliath, of course, was a giant, and Israel was trying to get rid of all of them. So he found a place where he could align himself with the Philistines and fight Israel as well. Same as it's been throughout the history of this story when you read about it in the Bible. But he was a champion, a hero. He was renowned. He was famous. A famous champion. Okay? And not only just for this reason, but for another reason, but that's another lesson. Go ahead, and now it's going to mention his height. Go ahead.
Whose height was 6 cubits and a span.
And we'll use, of course, I use the 2.10 feet cubit, 25.025 inches, and would make him taller, brothers and sisters, than 9 feet. This giant was 13 feet 6 inches. Okay? And other historical references will bag that up as well. But go ahead.
And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail.
Go ahead.
And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs.
Go ahead.
And a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam.
Like a weaver's beam. You know what that really is? It's like plaits. That's what a weaver's beam. It's like a weave. Plaited. That's the way this thing looked. Go ahead.
600 shekels of iron, and
that's
one
what his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron. Go ahead.
Oh, I missed that. And his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him.
Go ahead.
And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are you come out to set your battle in array?
Go ahead.
Am not I a Philistine?
Because he dwelt among them, brothers and sisters. Remember that. Go ahead.
And ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants.
So he's trying to bargain with, hey, look, man, you find a guy, let him fight with me. If he beats me, then we'll serve you, and vice versa. So, okay, let's continue this.
But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us.
Go ahead.
And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day.
Go ahead.
Give me a man that we may fight together.
So he said, I defy the armies of Israel today. Okay? Go ahead. Now we're going to skip now to 60, verse 16.
And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days.
So 40 days he's
tormenting
Israel, talking about them, cussing them and making them ashamed. He just talking about me, saying vile things about him. And when nobody coming forth to deal with him, they was scared of this giant. Anyway, 13 feet tall, they scared. In any case, we're going to skip to 26 and continue this.
And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying...
Okay, now David enters the picture. You can read all this on your own, but we're just getting to the point here that I want to get to. David enters the picture and he questioned the men about the circumstances here. Go ahead.
What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine and taketh away the reproach from Israel?
He reproached Israel. That's a bad thing to be reproached by somebody, brothers and sisters. And a reproach is hanging on your head. You're ashamed. Skip down to verse 26 and read that.
And David spake unto the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine?
Yeah, Philistine, because he dwelt among them, brothers and sisters. Keep that in mind. I have to keep repeating that so you'll understand that. He wasn't a Philistine by nature or born a Philistine. He was Goliath of Gath. He was a Gathite. Go ahead.
And taketh away the reproach from Israel.
So he had reproached them 40 days. He did this. Talked about them and cursed them and all kind of stuff. Talked about his gods being the gods of them were really God. All kinds of stuff. All right, continue this.
For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he shall defy the armies of the living God?
Now you know that the armies that we read about I defy the Goliath. I defy the armies of Israel this day. But we know now that he defied the armies of the living God. Israel was the army of the Lord, brothers and sisters, sent into the promised land to clean it out, to clean and wipe out them giants and everything else that they had tainted. And we know how they did that from reading the past history of this stuff. So David, of course, we know what happened with respect to how he defeated Goliath and so forth. And we go from this time, we can read about more battles and further evidence concerning these descendants. These giants were descendants of somebody named Rapha. But let's define and see who this Rapha is. Okay, because it's mentioned. Let's see who he is. Let's go to the Smith's Bible Dictionary, and we're going to go to page 258, and we're going to look at the word Rapha and define it rather in terms of what it means. So what does it say?
Rapha means tall.
Tall? Oh, it has something to do with giants, perhaps. Let's see.
A giant.
Exactly. Go ahead.
And father of a family.
A tribe nation.
Nation of tall men.
Of tall men, meaning other giants. This Rapha was connected to them. He was a father. But to really who? It gives reference to some things. You read that.
Reference to 2 Samuel 21 and 16.
Go ahead.
Some scholars identify Rapha a giant of Gath.
Wait a minute. He was a giant of Gath too? Who else was from Gath?
Goliath.
Wow. Let's keep reading and see if he's connected in any way to Goliath. Go ahead.
As the father of Goliath and 4 other giants.
And his 4 brothers. This was the father of Goliath and his 4 brothers. This Rapha. This is what we read here. Go ahead and finish this.
Who are mentioned in the scriptures as feared Philistine champion warriors.
It's just letting you know they are mentioned in the scriptures as feared Philistine champion warriors. Which they were. They were aligned with them, but they were not Philistines by nature. They were giants of Gath. And their father, Rapha, was also from Gath, a giant of Gath. And he was their father of these 5 giants. Let's now move to 2 Samuel 21. We're going to read 15 to the 22nd. And Israel's still at war again, right here with the Philistines. We're reading about David and his escapades with these giants and some of them, okay? Go ahead.
Moreover, the Philistines had yet war again with Israel.
Go ahead.
And David went down, and his servants with him, and fought against the Philistines, and David waxed faint.
Got tired.
And
Benob.
hold on. And Ishbi-Benob, which was of the sons of the giant.
Here's another giant here. Go ahead.
And weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David.
Read, go ahead.
But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, secured him and smote the Philistine and killed him.
He killed him. This is another giant. Go ahead and continue this.
Then the men of David swear unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel.
Because if he got killed, the whole strength and bravery of Israel would have been gone. That's what happens when you lose your leader and your king. Go. So he said, you ain't coming out with us no more, man. We ain't going to let you out do this no more. Go ahead.
And it came to pass after this that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob.
At Gob. Here's another battle with these Philistines. And we're going to read about somebody else. Go ahead.
Then Sibbachai, the Hushite, slew Saph, which was of the sons of the giant.
This is another son of the giant. And keep reading.
And there was again a battle in Gob.
Same place.
With the Philistines.
With the same people. Go ahead.
Where Elhanan, the son of Jeroreelgim, the Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a waver's beam.
There's another one that had a beam, a spear, that was like a plat.
A weaver's
beam. Go ahead.
And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature.
This is another giant. Go ahead.
That had on every hand 6 fingers.
This is the deformity I talked about earlier, brothers and sisters. But all giants, King Og, we read, didn't have any deformities that Josephus noticed or wrote about. But here we see that this giant here had deformities. Go ahead.
And on every foot 6 toes.
6 fingers and 6 toes. Go ahead.
24 in number.
24 of each. Go ahead.
And he also was born to the giant.
He was born to the giant. What giant? The one that we first defined his name, the father of all. Rapha. This is what you're reading here. Okay? These are his sons we read. Go ahead.
And when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimua, the brother of David, slew him.
Killed this one. Go ahead.
These 4 were born to the giant in Gath.
These are what the sons of Rapha.
And the brothers of
Goliath. Brothers and sisters, what we're reading about. All giants. Go ahead.
And fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants.
As we can see, some of them had physical form. They may have all had. We don't know. But we read about one that did.
So David, the only story most people know is that David slew Goliath. Yeah. But David was really a giant slayer.
That's exactly.
He slayed many giants.
And his men
helped him with this particular task to get rid of him, and because they wanted to fight, brothers and sisters, they had to take the promised land. They weren't giving it up, and even when they put them in certain sessions, they were still trying to come back to root Israel out of their spot. That's why you would war if you became the victor, then you were king over these people and where they dwelled at. And this lets you know what was going on. David and his men were the end of Goliath and his family, brothers and sisters. And when we get away from Goliath and his brothers, you don't read anything else about these giants or nations of giants or tribes of giants. We're going to go to 17, the 17th verse, scripture in this lesson, and we're going to go to 1 Chronicles 11. We're going to read 22 and 23 and pick up something else that has to deal with DNA. We read about that earlier as well, and where it came from, and how these sons of God taught mankind how to mix the species and tamper with DNA and so forth, and bring forth different kinds of creatures and all of that. Abominations, really, that's what they were. Because if they weren't created by God, they were an abomination, brothers and sisters. And you still have this going on today. You might not think you do, but you do. You just look a little closer. Pay attention to what you're looking at. And all these things you see in these movies, and you be looking at, oh, these people crazy, they make up stuff. You can trace these things back also. Ancient history. Okay? But anyway, we're going to go to 1 Chronicles 11. We're going to read 22 and 23 and read about a species here. And also another giant that was 11 feet and a quarter tall. But when you get there to 22, read that.
Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many acts, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab.
What? 2 lion-like men? How can a man look like a lion if he doesn't have any of the DNA in him? I mean, these are lion-like men. And they were not little men either, brothers and sisters. Go ahead.
Also, he went down and slew a lion in the pit in a snowy day.
This was a bad dude right here. This is what it's just telling you. This Benaiah, he had done many acts of bravery and for David. Go ahead.
And he slew an Egyptian, a man of great stature,
a giant. Go ahead.
5 cubits high, and in the Egyptian's hand was a spear like a weaver's beam.
When you do the calculations of this giant's height, using that ancient Hebrew cubit, he was 11 and a quarter feet tall. This was a giant. Go ahead.
And he went down to him with a staff and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with his own spear.
This Benaiah was a bad dude. He wasn't playing. He was a bad dude. And they say he did many acts of bravery and so forth, and this just happened to be a few of them that we read about here. But what about these 2 Ariels, these 2 lion-like men? And it shows you that these men, they had Nephilim DNA, blood. Okay, in their veins. They still had traces of it because they wouldn't be looking like this if they didn't. So you know who they were connected to. Okay? Whose features, they retain the resemblance of lions. We're going to go and see, can we find any information historically about these beings by going to a book that we exposed to you in the part 1 of this lesson. Genesis 6, Giants. Master Builders and Prehistoric and Ancient Civilizations. This is this book written by Stephen Quayle, and we're going to go to page 419, and we're going to look up aerials and see what it tells us. Does it say anything about these aerials and where they came from, the origin of them, or anything? When you get there, read that definition of aerials.
Aerials, Benaiah, one of David's mighty men.
We read that in the Bible, did we not? Go ahead and continue.
reportedly killed 2 Ariels from Moab.
And remember, this word Ariel can also be used to define or describe that ancient city, Jerusalem. That's another word for that as well. But here, it's in reference to these 2 lion-like men. But go ahead.
According to the King James Version, were lion-like men.
Mm-hmm.
That is, their human features still retain some resemblance to the lion.
To the, who?
Lion.
How in the world can they do that if they were not connected to them DNA-wise, brothers and sisters? Think about what I'm telling you. This is the remnant. This stuff is coming all the way down through time, and you're finding remnants even all the way up to David's time of what they were doing before the flood and after the flood. DNA tampering and whatnot. We're going to stay in this Genesis 6 giants, master builders of prehistoric and ancient civilizations, and we're going to go to page 420 and just define a few giants of old that are mentioned in the Old Testament, the Avim. Because a lot of people said they were no giants. We're going to see. Let's see what it says about the Avim, A-V-V-I-M. And some people say A-V-I-M, but we know these are connected to some other people in the giants, but we're going to get some clarity in this. When you get there, start reading.
Avim. Experts believe the Avim and Hurrians were the first giants to occupy Canaan.
What?
The first giants to
The
occupy
Hurrian
Canaan.
were the first giants to occupy. Go ahead.
According to Moses, the Avims them lived on the plains around Gaza.
Around Gaza? Isn't that where they wound up? The last 3 remaining parts of them wound up, and that was one of the places that Joshua ran in Gaza?
Because they had been
The
there.
only place left that had them.
That's
pretty much.
exactly.
Yes.
But they had been there in old time as well.
They was
But
there
anyway,
all the time.
go ahead.
But they were almost annihilated by the Caphtorium.
They were almost annihilated, meaning wiped out. Okay.
Caphtorum,
Captorum, go ahead.
who came in ships from Caphtor,
Mm-hmm.
those who escaped the Caphtorum afterwards founded a city in the territory that later fell by lot to the tribe of Benjamin.
Go ahead.
To perpetrate their name, they called it Avim.
If you look in the scriptures, give you the identity of the Capturum, brothers and sisters, and it will shock you. They were the Philistines. All you gotta do is look it up. But anyway, continue reading this because they give you references: Deuteronomy 2 and 23, Genesis 10 and 14, Amos 9 and 7, Jeremiah 47 and 4. They will confirm who the Philistines, who they were originally, and where they came from. All you gotta do is look. This is right there in the Bible. But you don't think this stuff matters. You don't think defining or identifying anybody matters, but it does. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to stay in this book. This is enough of that. And we're going to go stay in the Genesis 6, Giants, Master Builders of Prehistoric and Ancient Civilizations, page 445. And we're going to read about the Horim or the Horites. Let's see if they were connected in any way to these giants. When you get there, read.
Horim or Horites. In the 19th century BC, just before he attacked Sodom and Gomorrah, Elam's Chedorlaomer waged war against the giant of Horim.
The giant Horim. Look, these Horim were giants. That's what it says. That's what you read about when you're reading back there in Genesis. When those 5 kings was fighting those 4. Those were giants fighting giants. For the most part, they had normal men mingled in there too. But go ahead.
Who occupied the rough mountain range of Seir.
Oh, go ahead.
They never fully recovered from that blow, and the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, later displaced those that remained.
Took their place, took their land. Mount Seir. That's how Esau got that. And when you read in the book, clearly the Lord will show you he had something to do with that as well. But you're not reading none of this stuff. You don't think it means anything. Okay, but but then it's telling you something else. Continue reading this.
Some scholars also identified the Jebusites.
The who?
The
The
Jebusites
Jebusites. Go ahead.
at Jerusalem, and the Perizzites.
Parasite. Well, I said parasites.
Perizzites.
Perizzites. Go ahead.
Perizzites of the Forest Hill country that Ephraim later occupied with the Horites.
They were one and the same. This is what this is telling you. You got to define stuff, brother. It'll give you a lot of information and open your eyes to a lot of things you've been reading in the Bible for years and never paid no attention to these people and who they were. Again, a lot of these people were total giants, some of these nations that you name, but some of them had giants mingled in with them because they ruled over them at that time. And they were not entirely all giants, but some of them were all giants, some of these nations. But in any case, we're going to go now to the Smith's Bible Dictionary, page 114, and look up the word Raphaim, because it means giants, okay? And it's going to tell you that when you get there, read Raphaim. What's the definition of that word Raphaim?
Raphaim, giant.
Mm-hmm.
Hebrew,
In the Hebrew, it's Nephil. Go ahead.
Nephilim, Raphaim.
Okay, that's what it means in the Hebrew. That's how it's that word is in the Hebrew, Nephilim and Raphaim. But anyway, continue to read the definition. And we're gonna pick up some information, a lot of information here, but pay attention to this. Go ahead.
Person of great strength.
Mm-hmm.
The,
Of course they were. They were giants, weren't they? Go ahead.
the Nephilim were living in Canaan at the time of the Exodus.
Really? Yes. They
Numbers 13:33.
were. We read that already, either in chapter 1 or we didn't cover it in this chapter, but we read that. They were the Nephilim are who? They're the giants. That's what you're reading about. Go ahead.
The sons of Anak
Mm-hmm.
were afterwards identified with the same race,
Exactly. Go ahead.
living in
The
Hebron.
capital city at that time. Go ahead.
The Rephaim were a tribe living in Canaan.
Go ahead.
Og being a king of the branch of on the east of Jordan. The same name was in later times given to any large and strong people.
Mm-hmm.
The Emim and Zanzumim
Mm-hmm.
were also of the great giants.
They were also of these giants. When you read about the word, when you read the word Emim in the Bible and the Zamzum, these are all giants, brothers and sisters. Okay, and you can read about that. It gives a reference, but we're gonna keep it moving. Continue reading it.
These merely strong men gave way before the skillful and disappeared from history of the cultivated people.
Go ahead.
Goliath and his brothers are the last mention in the Bible.
And that's what I told you. When you get away from Goliath and his 4 brothers, after that, they're no longer mentioned. But that don't mean that they didn't exist or still exist, brothers and sisters. There's another history that you don't know anything about, and it's massive. And that's gonna be part 3. When I eventually get to it, I'm gonna show you where these giants wound up at, and we're gonna deal with Europe and so forth. But anyway, let's continue this, because before we close, I want to show you something that I mentioned in part 1, how these dead giants still affect our lives, our children's lives, and everybody else, even to this day and beyond us until the Lord comes. They're going to affect our lives. And I said then, you didn't know how, and I'm still telling you you don't, and you should, and I'm going to expose it to you right now by going back to the book of Enoch and show you something here. How do these giants that died before the flood and after the flood affect our lives? How did they affect our lives back then, or the people who were living back then, and our lives in terms of us coming after the flood? How does it do that? How do they do that? We're going to find out. When you get to Enoch 15, we're going to start at the 8 and read to the 12. When you get there, start reading.
And now the giants who were produced from the spirits.
Hold on a second. They were produced from the spirits, meaning the angels. Go ahead.
and flesh.
Meaning the daughters of men. That's what we read here, brothers and sisters. We can read this in Genesis. Okay, go ahead.
Shall be called evil spirits upon the earth.
The giants, wait a minute. The giants who are produced from the spirit, meaning the angels or the sons of God, and flesh, meaning the daughters of men, shall be called what? Evil spirits upon the earth. Go ahead.
And on the earth shall be their dwelling.
Shall be their home. Because this is where they were born.
And they weren't born of God.
No.
So they can't go back to God.
That's absolutely
Once they
correct
die.
and an excellent point. They were not of God, brothers and sisters. And that's why they're here. This is their home, their dwelling place, and they will remain. Go ahead.
Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies.
Wait a minute. What?
Evil spirits.
So spirits came out of the bodies of these giants.
yeah.
This is what this says,
The
brothers
evil
and sisters.
spirits.
But they were evil spirits. Evil spirits came out of the bodies of these giants. Okay, go ahead.
Because they were born from men
Uh-huh.
and from the holy watchers.
Who are the watchers?
the
These are
angels,
angels. The sons of God. Go ahead.
is their beginning and primal origin.
They are their progenitors. So they began here on this earth. This earth is going to be their dwelling place. So whenever a giant died, an evil spirit came out of his body. Go ahead.
And shall be evil spirits upon the earth.
They shall.
And they shall be evil spirits upon the earth, and evil spirits shall they be called.
So you have evil spirits that came out of the bodies of all these giants. They can't die, brothers and sisters, and they here in multitude. And they affect your life. That's how. Go ahead.
As for the spirits of heaven,
Meaning the righteous angels, go ahead.
in heaven shall be their dwelling.
Because that's where they were from, and that's where they're going to be, and that's where they're going to dwell. But not the ones that we call evil, the ones that fell. No. Go ahead, this is what this is telling you. Go ahead.
But as for the spirits of the earth,
Meaning these evil spirits that came out of the bodies of those giants, go ahead.
which were born upon the earth,
Uh-huh.
on the earth shall be their dwelling.
Go ahead.
And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress,
Afflict and oppress. Do we see affliction out here among mankind? Oppression among mankind? Go ahead.
destroy,
Do we see destruction? Mankind being destroyed in more ways than you can count? Go ahead.
attack,
Attacked in more ways you can count, even by evil spirits or demonic. Anything that's demonic or demons. Go ahead.
do battle,
These spirits do battle. Go ahead.
and work destruction
Go ahead.
on the earth, and cause trouble.
These spirits did that in the days before the flood, didn't they? You brothers and sisters, do me a favor. Read that again. Where these and evil spirits and the spirits of the giants. Go ahead and start there and read that again. Because I want to make sure you get it. This is how they affect our lives. Just like they affected the lives of the people before the flood, and the Lord had to bring the flood to get rid of them. What you think he got to come in person to deal with this, but that ain't got it yet. But I'm just letting you know how they affect our lives. These spirits, they do some things. They afflict, they oppress, they destroy, they attack, they do battle, and they work destruction on this earth and cause trouble. You wonder why they troubles over there. Who you think causing it? But read that again. I'm gonna just let you read that so they can get this.
And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble.
This is the same thing they did before the flood, and you know the cause of it now, even today. And this is how your lives are affected. You in a place and everything is working, everything is nice, you're getting along with somebody, all of a sudden there's trouble between you and that person. Who caused that? Okay? You're getting along with this guy, all of a sudden he wants to fight you, want to do battle with you. Out of nowhere. Who caused that? You're not thinking. Continue reading this.
They take no food,
Go ahead.
but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses.
And they cause offenses. Go ahead.
And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women.
This is how they affect us, brothers and sisters. These spirits have been and are still and will continue to rise up against us. Because their only thought is to do what? Evil continually, and anybody that they enter or take over is going to think the same way. Or anybody they taint and influence mentally, thought process. If their thought process is taken over by these evil spirits, what do you think they're going to become? And this is what you have every time you look out your window. You look at the news, you read the paper, you look on YouTube, you look on the internet. This is what you see. You see somebody causing an offense. You see destruction, somebody being attacked, something being destroyed, people being oppressed, afflicted, and you see battle. All of this, all you see. Now you know how they affect the lives of mankind today.
It's like most people, they say, I hate to watch the news. Every time I see the news, it's nothing but bad news. Somebody getting killed, somebody in war. They don't want to see it.
Now you know why. Go ahead and finish this.
Because they proceeded from them.
They proceeded out of the bodies of these giants, brothers and sisters. And this is true. This is a fact. And you've never paid attention to it. I don't blame you. Because at one time I didn't. And someone had to open my eyes, and then I had to go on my own and pursue this further than what they gave me to establish that it was true. I had to convince myself in terms of what I found, it was the actual truth of God, and it lined up with the scriptures perfectly, and this is what you're going to have to do. I can only show you so much, and then you're going to have to pursue this truth if you want it. If you want to stay in the dark, then that's cool too. I ain't got nothing to do with that. But you don't need to be there because, hey, that's the wrong place to be nowadays, in the dark. Believe me. So we're going to go and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to give you something special historically. This information is going to open your eyes about these giants and these titans. That was another name for them as well. And these Gibborim or Nephilim, they're offspring of the fallen angels. It can be used, that word can be used to describe them depending on the context it's being used in. But typically it's talking about the angels. Okay, just want to let you know that because people get in an argument about that, but it's no argument necessary. Sometimes it's referenced and you know that it's talking about the giants or the Raphaim. You just make that separation and keep it moving. Don't argue about it. That stops your growth and stops your understanding. Stop you from gaining knowledge when you waste time arguing about things that can be explained simply and you can move on in peace. But you don't want to do that. Again, who's influencing people to do those things? Those spirits. You're not paying attention. So if somebody say the Nephilim are talking about it, no, wait. Hey, in some places they are referenced as the giants. But mainly it's talking about the angels. Then you look at the word Raphaim. It's talking about the giants and so forth. So some people will even use that as a reference for the angels. I've seen it. I've read it. But I know where it goes. And again, it depends on what you're reading.
And all of it pretty much stems from the same place. And they all are here for the same reason.
That's exactly correct. This is why. What's the argument about? What's that argument?
Right.
What's that a fight about? You know, if you sitting with somebody, you at peace, and you go to arguing, who's causing that?
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking. You don't have anything against this person or that person. All of a sudden, you're arguing. All of a sudden, you want to do battle.
You could say the Nephilim, or you could say the demons, or you could say the evil spirits. All of it is the same thing.
It's simple as that. You don't need to argue about this. Anyway, we're going to go to the last place. And I want to give you a piece of information to show you something because there's some things, these Nephilim, or the children of the Nephilim in this sense, the giants, the Gibborim, or the Raphaim, they had supernatural strength and supernatural power.
This is why they were called heroes, men of renown. They did great things. They did great things, which was one of the reasons they called them men of renown. But they were also renowned because they were related to spirit.
They did supernatural.
They were related to supernatural beings.
Right.
They were from them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. That's a twofold thing there. And I'm going to show you something supernatural about one of these giants. He did something. And you don't read a lot of things, but this can be verified in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's attached to all of what we've read today. It's attached to it. We're going to go to the book of the giants from the Dead Sea Scrolls, also referred to as Enoch 3. And they found 15 fragments in a cave. And you can start reading on page 549. And they found these fragments, and it gives us some information about one of these giant sons of one of the fallen angels. And I'm going to give you his name as well. You can find his name written in Enoch and even in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's going to mention a few of them here. But it starts out in its title, "The outcome of the demonic corruption was violence." Ain't that what we've been reading about? Perversion. We've been reading about that too. And a brood of monstrous beings. And they say, you want to compare this, go to Genesis 6 and 4. That's what it says. And I'm telling you, you can find this information if you just read it. You thirsty for understanding and knowledge, you can look for it and the Lord will lead you to it. Anyway, we're going to go to this first fragment, 4Q 531, fragment 2, and it's broken up. And just Teresa's going to deal with this best she can and read this to where it makes sense and you can kind of see what's here. But we're only going to read, and that's all we can read. We can't add nothing to it and let you know what this is saying. It's going to lead us somewhere to what this giant did. Go ahead.
They defiled. They begot giants and monsters.
This is what the sons of God did. They begot giants and what?
Monsters.
Monsters. How can you read about none of these monsters in the Bible, brothers and sisters?
Well,
You'd be surprised.
You did. That lion-like man in the cave.
I said you would be surprised if you really investigate that book, that Bible, and get your hand on the Septuagint, which is the Greek. You'd be surprised what you would find. And even some of the other Bibles, the NIV and LV, they just tell you things plain and simple. But you don't believe. I hear these guys all the time. I ain't gonna read nothing. If you don't show it, give it to me out of the King James Bible, I don't want to hear it. But then when you show them stuff out of the King James, we've been reading the King James Bible through this whole class. You don't want to believe, but that's in there. You can't accept what you want. You have to accept the truth, all of it. But anyway, it says they begot giants and monsters. Go ahead.
They begot, and behold, all the earth was corrupted.
Then we read that out of Enoch and the Bible. Go ahead.
With its blood and by the hand of giants which did not suffice for them, and they were seeking to devour many.
And call the numbers out because we're skipping to numbers. These are like verses, I guess. And it's missing some things, but call the numbers out. We actually we're reading, I think, is 8 in all, right?
8 verses.
Yeah, 8 verses in all, and 7 has absolutely nothing in it, but it's there. So we're gonna read the last one, which is 8. It said 6 said, and they were seeking to devour many. We read about them being devoured because they could not sustain or feed these giants, and they began to devour men. Didn't we read that in Enoch?
Right.
And you read the same thing in the Bible. You know what you're reading. But anyway, continue this.
Okay. Verse 7, nothing mentioned. Verse 8, the monsters attacked it.
The giants were the only ones attacking mankind. They were crying out to God because these monsters that they created was attacking them too. All right, we're going to go to another place, 4Q, Quorum 532, and I won't skip that one. And we're going to go to the one after that and read what's there.
The giants began to be troubled by a series of dreams.
So, dreams
and visions.
So they began to have dreams and visions, and they couldn't understand what they were reading, but they were horrifying dreams. And they would be standing in this vision from their mind, but it was about their destruction. and how they were going to be destroyed. But they couldn't understand it. They didn't have no understanding of this. Anyway, they were a cursed seed, remember? Read it. Keep reading.
My way.
Who?
My way.
My way. This is the name of one of these giants. Go ahead.
The Titan.
He was a giant. That's what the word Titan means. My way, the Titan. What? Go ahead.
Giant son of the angel Barakel.
And you can read this angel Barakel's name in the book of Enoch. And also in the Dead Sea Scrolls, bro, and other historical references. Okay? They will give you the name of this angel here. Anyway, this Maui was his son. And how did he have his son? By coupling with the daughters of men. One of them. Go ahead.
More dreams afflict the giants. The details of this vision are obscure, but it bodes ill for the giants. The dreamers speak first to the monsters, then to the giants.
And this dream and all these dreams they were having, brothers and sisters, it was about their destruction, and it involved being immersed in water and some different things they saw. It symbolized the destruction of them, okay, in the days of Noah. So go ahead, where we at now?
Some suggest that Enoch be found to interpret the vision. To Enoch, the noted scribe, and he will interpret for us 12 the dream.
Okay, and we read this at the top. It said they assembled themselves because they was coming together talking about, man, I'm having these dreams and I don't know what it means and da 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 da. And that you know who was sitting in this assembly? Their comrades, the monsters. Who are these monsters? Really, I don't want to get too deep in this, but this is astonishing to me when you read this stuff, and then it reads about, goes further about 200 trees, right? Before you read about Enoch interpreting the vision, it mentioned they had dreams about 200 trees and large shoots came out of their roots. This was representative of the 200 fallen angels that began this. Enoch tells you about that. Anyway, but go ahead and finish reading this.
Thereupon his fellow Oye
This is another giant. Wait, go ahead.
declared and said to the giants.
So these two, this Maui and Owe, they sitting there, they talking about these dreams they having, and they find out that all the rest of the giants are having them. So continue reading.
13. I too had a dream this night, O giants.
Go ahead.
And behold, the ruler of heaven came down to earth.
Who's the ruler of heaven? We're talking about God Almighty, brothers and sisters. The one and only here. Go ahead.
14. And such is the end of the dream. Thereupon all the giants and monsters grew afraid.
They grew afraid because this didn't loom well for them. These dreams are about their destruction. In other words, they don't have long to live. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And called my way.
Okay, this is the original one. So he's the one that they all called. Said, come here, man. Go ahead.
He came to them, and the giants pleaded with
They
him
begging him. Go ahead to do what?
and sent him to Enoch.
So they wanted him to go see Enoch on their behalf. Go ahead.
Now, verse 16. The noted scribe.
Go ahead.
They said to him, go to you that. 17. You have heard his voice.
So they knew he was familiar with Enoch. That's why they wanted him to go. He knew Enoch's voice and whatnot. He was familiar with him. So that's why they wanted to send him. Go ahead.
And he said to him, he will.
And that's
it
one.
starts another verse.
Starts another
Chapter
verse or chapter.
verse.
Is number 1. Go ahead.
And interpret the dream.
So you go to Enoch, man. You heard his voice. You can't be fooled. You gonna get the right person. So you know his voice. So you call upon him and have him interpret these dreams for us, so we can know what the heck is going on. Go ahead.
3, verse 3. How long the giants have to live?
So this is what these dreams depicted. They had short time, brothers and sisters. So I want to ask you a question. Think about it for a second. we know that this my way was chosen to go to Enoch, okay, and he was the son of the fallen angel Barkel. But how did he get to Enoch? Did he walk? We know they didn't have cars back then, or buses, or mules that he could ride and so forth. We don't mention that. Let's see how he got to Enoch.
Did he run?
Yeah, did he run? How did he get to him? Did he crawl? We're going to see. This is something that really just blew me away when I read this. And this is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is a part of the Book of the Giants, which Noah had something to do with, and as well as the Book of Enoch. But get to that part and read that next little chapter there.
After a cosmic journey.
Wait a minute. What's a cosmic journey?
Cosmic seems like in the air.
He would be up off the ground, brothers and sisters. But we're going to see. Go ahead. After a cosmic journey, go ahead.
My way comes to Enoch
Mm-hmm.
and makes his request.
How did he get to Enoch? It's going to tell you this right here. Read that.
He mounted up in the air.
What?
He mounted up in the air.
How does a giant throw a saddle on the air and get on him and mount him like you mount a horse? That doesn't make any sense. Keep reading. It's going to make sense. If you keep reading, he mounted up in the air. Go ahead.
Like strong winds.
Uh-huh.
And flew with his hands like an angel.
Brothers and sisters, this giant had the ability to fly. And you can find other giants with supernatural abilities. That's where you get your superheroes from. People don't understand this. But when I read this, I was just outdone with this here. It says, after a cosmic journey, my way comes to Enoch and makes his request. Okay, man, you need to break these dreams down so I can tell the monsters and the giants what it's talking about. So he mounted up in the air.
This is after he made the request.
Hey.
So
like,
evidently, this is after the request. He mounted in the air and flew. He said, okay, he made his request and he flew off. But how did he get there? He had to have gotten there the same way.
Same exact way. And this is why I wanted to read this and bring this to you like this. He flew there and he flew away. But this is a giant. See, like strong winds, and he flew with his hands. Like what angel?
Like an angel.
What superhero mainly you know about flies with his hands?
Not Superman.
Come on, brother. Now you know where he's getting a lot of this stuff from. Pay attention. Now you know where he got this from. This one character. There are others that do it, but mainly
But
that one.
I didn't finish reading that. It said, like angels he left behind.
Mm-hmm. Hey, brothers and sisters, this is Israel, part 2 of Israel's invasion of the Promised Land and why it was necessary. We have shown you many things I'm quite sure that you did not know, and some of you might know, and I think it was a blessing just to hear it, perhaps from somebody else, but we gave you all the information. You have the scriptures to go over this lesson, to check it out, and you can research it if you want to, but it is what we found through our research, and we believe it to be true because it's in the Bible. Most of it, all of it almost. And the things that we read outside of the Bible pointed toward the Bible as a reference. So it's all connected, brothers and sisters. And we hope and pray that you were edified and you got some understanding out of this lesson. And I hope you go over this lesson again and share it with others that need to know this. But I just like to say we appreciate your sitting and going through this class with us and fellowshipping with us. And Teresa and I would like to say that our revealing of all this information is a blessing to God for us personally and hopefully to you as well. So until next time, we hope to see you. You have a blessed and fruitful day, okay?